Over the past 5 years, American cities have been battling twin crises that nobody wants to talk about at the dinner table. Homelessness has surged to levels not seen since the Great Depression, while simultaneously, property values in these same neighborhoods have begun collapsing under the weight of deteriorating conditions, rising crime, and fleeing residents. It's a downward spiral that's hitting both compassion and commerce, leaving communities torn apart and investors scrambling for the exits. The scale of what's happening is unprecedented in modern American history. What we're witnessing isn't just a housing crisis or a social crisis. It's both, feeding off each other in a vicious cycle that's reshaping entire metropolitan landscapes. Cities that once symbolized prosperity and opportunity are now ground zero for a collision between unaffordable housing, mental health breakdowns, and economic instability. Property owners who thought their investments were bulletproof are watching equity vanish. Neighborhoods that felt untouchable are now plastered with for sale signs and boarded up storefronts. And through it all, tent cities keep expanding, pushing deeper into commercial districts and residential streets alike. Make sure to hit subscribe right now because today we're counting down the top 10 cities where homelessness is exploding and property values are tanking together. Stick around for number 1 because what's unfolding there might be the most alarming transformation happening anywhere in the country. Number 10, Portland, Oregon. Portland's descent has been slow, painful, and impossible to ignore. A city once celebrated for its quirky culture, craft breweries, and lush green spaces has become a cautionary tale about what happens when local leadership loses control of the basics. Over the past 4 years, Portland's homeless population has surged by more than 65%. Tent encampments have spread like wildfire through Old Town, downtown, and even into neighborhoods like Laurelhurst and Hawthorne that used to feel completely insulated from the crisis. The speed and scope of the transformation has left longtime residents stunned. Walk through the Pearl District today and you'll see scenes that would have been unimaginable a decade ago. Sidewalks lined with tarps and makeshift shelters. Public parks transformed into open-air communities. Needles scattered across playgrounds where children used to play. Business owners have been pushed to the brink, installing heavy metal shutters and hiring private security just to keep their doors open. Many have simply given up and left, leaving behind empty storefronts that tell the story of a city in decline. Property values have taken a brutal hit across the board. Single-family homes in inner southeast Portland that were selling for $650,000 in 2021 are now struggling to find buyers at $480,000. Representing massive losses for homeowners. Condos downtown have lost 30% of their value in some cases, and even then, they're sitting on the market for months with zero interest, no viewings, no offers. The issue isn't just the visible encampments that dominate street corners and parks, it's the entire ecosystem of problems that come with them and spiral out from there. Car break-ins have become so common that insurance companies are raising premiums or pulling coverage altogether. Retail theft has forced major chains to shut down locations. Violent crime has spiked in areas where it was virtually non-existent before. The belief that Portland was a safe, stable place to park money has evaporated. Number 9. Albuquerque, New Mexico. Albuquerque doesn't make national headlines the way coastal cities do, but what's happening here is just as severe and just as devastating for the people who call it home. The city has seen its unsheltered population nearly double since 2020, with sprawling encampments taking root along the Rio Grande, beneath highway overpasses, and disturbingly close to residential areas in the Northeast Heights. It's no longer isolated to a single district. The crisis has spread like wildfire across the entire metro, touching neighborhoods that thought they were safe. The state has some of the highest poverty rates in the nation. Mental health services are severely underfunded, leaving vulnerable populations without the support they desperately need. Addiction, particularly involving fentanyl and methamphetamine, has spiraled out of control, creating a public health emergency that the city is woefully unprepared to handle. Property values have responded predictably, dropping like stones in a pond. Homes near encampments or areas with rising crime have seen values drop by 15 to 20%, sometimes more. Entire blocks in the International District and parts of downtown are now considered no-go zones by potential buyers, areas where real estate agents won't even show properties. Even the historically desirable neighborhoods near the University of New Mexico are feeling the pressure, seeing the writing on the wall. Parents are pulling kids out of nearby schools, worried about safety and declining quality. Long-term residents are selling at a loss just to escape the deterioration, abandoning neighborhoods they've lived in for decades. Commercial real estate is getting hammered. Strip malls that anchored communities for decades are now half empty. Office buildings are bleeding tenants. Residents feel abandoned by city leadership, stuck watching their neighborhoods decay, while officials cycle through plans that never deliver results. For property owners, it's a slow-motion disaster. Equity is vanishing while they're still paying high property taxes on homes worth significantly less. Number 8, Fresno, California. Fresno has always operated in the shadow of California's coastal giants, playing second fiddle to San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego. But in 2025, it's facing a crisis that's entirely its own, one that threatens to define the city for a generation. The city's homeless population has exploded by more than 50% since 2021, and the impact on property values has been swift and absolutely merciless. Encampments have taken over large sections of downtown Fresno, spreading into areas around Blackstone Avenue and parts of North Fresno that used to be family-friendly and stable, places where people raised kids and planned for retirement. The Central Valley has become a dumping ground for California's broader homelessness crisis. As cities like San Francisco and Los Angeles implemented more aggressive sweeps, many individuals migrated inland. Fresno absorbed that overflow without the resources to handle it. Property values in affected neighborhoods have cratered. Homes that were listed at $320,000 2 years ago are now sitting unsold at $240,000. Buyers are terrified of investing in areas where encampments are visible from their front porches. Real estate agents have started using coded language in listings, avoiding certain street names entirely. For the middle-class families who make up Fresno's backbone, the situation feels like betrayal. They bought homes believing in the promise of stability. Instead, they're watching their largest asset lose value while their quality of life declines. Parks they used to take their kids to are now off limits. Schools are dealing with increased security concerns. Local businesses are closing because foot traffic has disappeared. Investors who once saw Fresno as an affordable entry point are now fleeing. Rental properties that were supposed to generate steady cash flow are sitting vacant. Number 7, Tacoma, Washington. Tacoma used to be Seattle's scrappy little sibling, always a bit rougher around the edges, but full of character and potential. More affordable, grittier, but full of potential and charm that drew people who wanted authenticity. For years, it absorbed overflow from Seattle's skyrocketing housing costs, drawing in young families, artists, and first-time buyers who wanted a foothold in the Pacific Northwest without the crushing sticker shock. People believed in Tacoma's comeback story, but in 2025, Tacoma is dealing with its own reckoning, and it's a harsh one. The city's homeless population has surged by over 70% since 2020. Encampments have spread across Hilltop, downtown Tacoma, and along the Thea Foss Waterway, areas that were supposed to be the future of the city's revitalization. Investors poured millions into waterfront condos and mixed-use developments, expecting steady returns. Instead, they're facing vacancies, declining rents, and property values that have dropped by double digits. The sight of tents pressed against brand new apartment buildings has become a grim symbol of disconnect. Tacoma's homeless crisis is deeply intertwined with addiction and mental illness. The city has one of the highest opioid overdose rates in Washington state. Public services are stretched impossibly thin. For homeowners, the deterioration is personal. Families who bought in neighborhoods like North End are watching property values slide as encampments creep closer. Cars are being broken into nightly. Parks and playgrounds that used to be community gathering spots are now avoided. The sense of safety that made Tacoma appealing has eroded. Real estate agents report that out-of-town buyers are increasingly skittish. Photos of encampments circulate on social media, and suddenly a home that looked like a great deal becomes a hard pass. Number 6, Oakland, California. Oakland has always been complex, a city of contrasts where deep culture and serious struggle exist side by side. But over the past 4 years, the struggle has overtaken almost everything else. The city's homeless population has swelled by more than 80%, creating sprawling encampments along International Boulevard, near Lake Merritt, and throughout West Oakland. Property values have followed the same trajectory downward. Homes in East Oakland that were selling for $700,000 in 2021 are now barely reaching $500,000. In some areas, values have dropped by 35% or more, wiping out years of equity. Oakland has always dealt with crime, but recent years have seen violent crime, carjackings, and robberies surge to uncontrollable levels. Retail theft has become so rampant that major chains have pulled out entirely. Whole Foods, Denny's, In-N-Out Burger have shuttered locations, citing safety concerns. Encampments aren't hidden. They're front and center, lining highways, filling vacant lots, occupying public parks. RVs parked on residential streets have become permanent fixtures. Trash piles up. Fires break out. City services can't keep up. For property owners, the financial damage is compounded by the emotional toll. Many bought in Oakland because they believed in the city's potential. Now they feel trapped, unable to sell without taking massive losses. Families are fleeing to suburbs like Walnut Creek, willing to endure longer commutes in exchange for stability. The promise of Oakland as an affordable alternative to San Francisco has been shattered. Number 5, Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix was supposed to be immune to all of this. A Sunbelt powerhouse drawing people from every corner of the country, powered by affordable housing, endless sunshine, and a business-friendly environment that promised prosperity. But in 2025, the cracks in that narrative are impossible to ignore, and they're growing wider by the month. Phoenix's homeless population has exploded by more than 60% since 2020, and the impact on property values in certain neighborhoods has been absolutely catastrophic. Encampments have spread throughout central Phoenix, particularly around the zone, which has become the largest unsheltered community in the state. But the crisis hasn't stayed contained. It's crept into Maryvale, South Phoenix, and even parts of Tempe, bringing crime, sanitation issues, and disorder. Property values near encampments have plummeted. Homes that were appreciating steadily have lost 20 to 25% of their value. Entire blocks are now considered unbuyable. Real estate agents quietly steer clients away. For investors who bought rental properties expecting steady cash flow, the situation has turned into a nightmare. Tenants are breaking leases early, vacancies are rising. Phoenix's homelessness crisis is heavily driven by inadequate mental health infrastructure and skyrocketing housing costs. Arizona has some of the lowest funding for mental health services in the nation. The city has made efforts to address the issue, but the scale far exceeds available resources. For homeowners in affected areas, the financial consequences are devastating. Many are underwater on their mortgages. Refinancing is impossible. Selling means accepting a loss that could wipe out years of savings. The broader Phoenix metro is still growing, but growth is concentrated in far suburbs like Gilbert and Scottsdale, areas perceived as insulated. That shift is hollowing out central Phoenix. Number 4, Denver, Colorado. Denver was the golden child of Mountain West urbanism, a shining example of what a modern American city could be. A city that balanced outdoor recreation with a booming tech scene and vibrant cultural life. It drew young professionals, families, and retirees alike, all eager to plant roots in a place that seemed to have it all: mountains, opportunity, quality of life. But in 2025, Denver is grappling with a homelessness crisis that's reshaping its identity and hammering property values in the process, forcing residents to question everything they thought they knew about their city. The city's unsheltered population has grown by more than 40% since 2020. Encampments have spread across downtown along the South Platte River and into neighborhoods like Five Points and Capitol Hill that used to feel completely untouchable. Walk through Union Station, once the shining symbol of Denver's revitalization, and you'll see tents pitched just blocks away. Lodo, the historic lower downtown district, now feels hollowed out. Storefronts are vacant. Property owners are slashing prices just to find buyers. Condos that sold for $550,000 in 2021 are now listed at $410,000 and still sitting. In some areas, property values have dropped by 30% or more. Buyers simply don't want to invest in neighborhoods where encampments are visible from their windows. Denver's homeless crisis is fueled by several converging factors. Housing costs have skyrocketed, outpacing wage growth. Mental health and addiction services are stretched thin. Colorado's relatively mild winters have made Denver a destination for individuals from harsher climates. The city has tried to respond with temporary shelters, and sanctioned camping sites, but every solution gets bogged down in political fights or funding shortfalls. For homeowners, the crisis feels deeply personal. Many moved to Denver because it felt like a city on the rise. Now they're watching equity evaporate. Parents are pulling kids out of schools. Longtime residents are selling at a loss and leaving the state. Rental properties that were supposed to generate passive income are sitting vacant. People don't want to live in areas where they see tents on their commute, where car break-ins are routine. Number 3, Los Angeles, California. Los Angeles has been the face of America's homelessness crisis for years, a symbol of both the problem and the failure to solve it. But in 2025, the situation has reached a tipping point that's starting to break. Even the most optimistic residents, the ones who believed LA would eventually turn things around. The city's homeless population now exceeds 75,000 people, a staggering number that represents a 30% increase in just 4 years. That's not just a statistic. That's 75,000 individual human stories, 75,000 people living on the streets in one of the wealthiest cities in the world. Encampments have spread into virtually every neighborhood, from Venice Beach to Hollywood, from downtown LA to parts of the West Side that were once considered immune. The impact on property values has been brutal and uneven. In neighborhoods where encampments are most visible, values have dropped by 20 to 40%. Homes in Venice that were selling for $2.3 million in 2021 are now struggling to find buyers at $1.6 million. Condos in downtown LA have lost half their value in some cases. The frustration among residents is palpable and boiling over. Neighborhood groups are furious. Business owners feel abandoned. Homeowners are watching their life savings evaporate. The city's response has felt scattershot and ineffective. Sweeps clear encampments temporarily, but without adequate housing, people simply move to the next block. It's a game of whack-a-mole that exhausts everyone and solves nothing. Los Angeles's crisis reflects deep structural failures. Housing costs are among the highest in the nation. Mental health services are overwhelmed. Addiction treatment is woefully inadequate. For property owners, the financial damage is compounded by the emotional toll. Many bought homes in LA believing in the California dream. Now they feel trapped, unable to sell without taking massive losses. Families are leaving for Orange County or out of state entirely, seeking stability that LA can no longer provide. Commercial real estate is in freefall. Retail districts that were thriving are now ghost towns. Stores have closed. Restaurants have shuttered. The city has spent billions on homelessness initiatives, yet the crisis continues to worsen. Number 2, Seattle, Washington. Seattle's transformation over the past 5 years has been nothing short of shocking, a complete reversal of everything the city was supposed to represent. A city that once symbolized innovation, prosperity, and the future of urban living is now grappling with a homelessness crisis that's reshaping its entire identity and crushing property values in the process. The city's homeless population has grown by more than 50% since 2019, with encampments spreading throughout downtown, Capitol Hill, Ballard, and even into neighborhoods like Fremont and Queen Anne that used to feel completely insulated from urban problems. The visibility of the crisis is overwhelming. Walk through Pioneer Square or along 3rd Avenue, and you'll see scenes that feel more like a humanitarian disaster than a thriving American city. Tents line entire blocks. Makeshift shelters occupy every available sidewalk. The impact on property values has been swift and severe. Condos in downtown Seattle have lost 25 to 35% of their value. Single-family homes in neighborhoods near encampments have seen similar declines. Properties are sitting on the market for 6 months or more with no offers. The crisis is deeply tied to Seattle's broader economic shifts. The tech industry, which fueled the city's boom for 2 decades, has contracted sharply. Layoffs at Amazon, Microsoft, and countless startups have gutted the high-income base that sustained the housing market. At the same time, the cost of living remains crushingly high. Seattle's response has been hampered by political dysfunction and legal constraints. The city has tried tiny home villages, hotel conversions, expanded shelter capacity, but nothing is scaled to match the problem. For homeowners, the situation feels like a betrayal. Many bought into Seattle believing it was one of the safest cities in America. Now they're watching equity evaporate as their neighborhoods deteriorate. Car prowls are so common that people have stopped reporting them. Package theft is routine. Violent crime has spiked. Families are fleeing to suburbs like Bellevue and Redmond or leaving the state entirely. Commercial real estate is in collapse mode. Office buildings are nearly empty, with companies slashing their Seattle footprints or leaving altogether. Number 1, San Francisco, California. At the top of the list, in a category no city wants to lead, sits San Francisco. The city by the bay, the city that once represented the absolute pinnacle of American innovation and wealth, is now the epicenter of a homelessness crisis so severe and a property value collapse so dramatic that it feels like watching an empire crumble in real time. This isn't hyperbole. This is what's actually happening in America's 8th largest city. San Francisco's homeless population has surged past 20,000, and that number doesn't even begin to capture the density and visibility of the crisis. Encampments dominate the Tenderloin south of Market and the Civic Center, entire neighborhoods that have been essentially surrendered. They've spread into the Mission, the Haight, and even into residential areas of Noe Valley and the Sunset that were once considered completely untouchable bastions of stability in a changing city. The psychological impact is profound. Residents feel like they're living in a city that's given up. The financial toll is just as severe. Property values in San Francisco have collapsed in ways that seemed unthinkable. Condos in Soma that sold for $1.5 million in 2020 are now listed at $900,000 and still sitting. Victorian homes in the Castro have lost 30% of their value. Even in affluent neighborhoods like Pacific Heights and Russian Hill, values are down significantly. The exodus has been relentless. Tech workers, the lifeblood of San Francisco's economy for decades, have fled in droves. Remote work made it possible. Rising crime, visible disorder, and a cost of living that no longer made sense sealed the deal. Companies have followed, relocating headquarters to Austin, Miami, and Denver. The tax base that funded city services is evaporating just as demand for those services reaches all-time highs. What's happening to commercial real estate is catastrophic. Office towers in the financial district sit empty, with vacancy rates hitting 35% in some buildings. Retail corridors like Union Square have been gutted. Stores that weathered decades of economic cycles have closed permanently. Restaurants that defined San Francisco's food culture are gone. The street-level economy has collapsed, replaced by boarded windows and unanswered for-lease signs. For homeowners who stayed, the situation is agonizing. They're watching lifetime wealth evaporate. Many are underwater on mortgages taken out at peak values. Selling means accepting losses that could destroy retirement plans, but staying means living in a city that no longer feels recognizable, where daily life involves navigating tent cities, avoiding certain streets, and constantly worrying about safety. The human cost is staggering. San Francisco has spent over $3 billion on homelessness programs in the past 5 years. Yet the problem has only gotten worse. The bureaucracy is bloated and ineffective. Corruption scandals have eroded trust. San Francisco in 2205 is a stark warning about what happens when a city loses control of the fundamentals. All the wealth, all the innovation, all the progressive ideals in the world can't save a city that can't provide basic safety, cleanliness, and order. It's a lesson being learned in real time, at enormous cost. No city is immune, and San Francisco's collapse might be the most expensive cautionary tale in American urban history. So there you have it. 10 cities where the American dream is colliding head-on with the nightmare of homelessness and plummeting property values. These aren't abstract problems happening somewhere else to other people. They're reshaping the landscape of urban America right now, destroying generational wealth, displacing families who thought they'd found stability, and forcing all of us to confront hard questions about what we value, what we're willing to sacrifice, and how we fix what's broken. The solutions won't be easy, and they won't be cheap, but the cost of doing nothing is already proving to be far higher. If this video opened your eyes to what's really happening in America's cities, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future updates. Share it with someone who needs to see what's really happening, a friend considering a move, a family member who doesn't understand the scale of the crisis, anyone who cares about the future of American cities. And let me know in the comments which city shocked you the most, or if your city is dealing with similar struggles that aren't getting national attention. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.